Next will be literary history and style. Let's start first with the Renaissance period. So Renaissance literature appeared in 14th century, and Italian authors began writing in their native vernacular language rather than in Latin. So the first printing press was also born in Renaissance period. So literature in this era is characterized by adaptation or adoption of humanist philosophy and the recovery of classical literature. So when it comes to the format, we have here a Spenserian stanza. It is called fixed verse from invented by Edmund Spenser. And vernacular, of course, the use of the native language of the authors. We have anthropocentric. It is believing human beings to be the central of most of the significant literary text that has been written in this era. Next will be Shakespeare's drama, of course, the most famous author or playwright of them all, William Shakespeare. So some of his works are, let's start first with comedies. All's Well That Ends Well, and As You Like It, Comedy of Errors, Love's Labor's Lost, Measure for Measure, Merchant of Venice, Merry Wives of Windsor, Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, and there are many more. There are more. So no playwright before him could appeal to the masses quite like Shakespeare. So Shakespeare has his own eras because theater up until this time had been uniquely reserved for the wealthy and the education that Shakespeare added to the history. So until now, audience members engage with some of the Shakespeare's plays, and sometimes it is difficult to determine which individuals were. Um, Sometimes it is difficult to understand the plays that he wrote for some because he uses his own language. Next will be Romanticism. It is a movement in art and literature in the 18th and 19th centuries, and revolt against neoclassicism of the previous centuries. So there is one of the most famous German poet was he is Friedrich Schiller. He was given credit for being described as or he was given credit for using the term romantic to describe literature. So also there are some poets that has been that they've been famous during this era. They are William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lord Byron, and many more. And during Romanticism, characters of the literature include subjectivity and emphasis on individualism, spontaneity, freedom from rules, solitary life rather than life in society. So unlike Renaissance literature, so human it's like the way how human live is the center of the topics of the literary text that has been written during the era. So in romanticism period, the beliefs are emphasized also. So um, also Lord Byron, just like what I mentioned a while ago, is one of the greatest poets in this era. So they have that reputation as romantic because many aspects of their lives, including their travels around Europe and the fact that they died young, conform to the emerging 19th century ideal type of romantic hero. So in romantic literature, it includes a focus on the writer's narrations, social invention, idealization of women and children, and of course, imagination. So next will be realism. Realism. So it encompasses the period of time from the Civil War and the United States grew rapidly after the Civil War. So the democracy and literacy became or it became the literature and democracy grew bigger because of this, and some people immigrated and during this time. So there are some times wherein the influence of some people or some nations were also part of this era. So Midwest and South, south part of